real conversations, and some hard truths. Gangs, drugs, and guns. Giving a voice to those willing to sacrifice. We have stories that need to be told. We have lessons that need to be taught. Protect and serve. Welcome to The Quiet Professional. Hey everyone, welcome back. Nathan Romas with you. Today we are going to be discussing some current events and all things Royal Canadian Mounted Police. For that, I have two directors from the National Police Federation here. I have Kevin Halwa and Jeff McGowan. So welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us, Nathan. We're glad to be here.
Yep, thank you very much.
If we'll start off, maybe if you guys want to kind of give a bit of a background on yourselves and just tell us, where you've been through your careers and what you're up to nowadays, and with the NPF, but also any kind of special projects or maybe portfolios that you handle.
All right. So my name is Jeff McGowan. Obviously, I'm a member of the Mounted Police. I joined the RCMP out of Nova Scotia in 1994 and ended up in Montreal for French training, and then depot for obviously the 6 months there, and then promptly posted to Slave Lake, Alberta. So not much by way of French usage there, but it was used once or twice. Spent about 5 years or so in Slave, then went up to the Yukon. I was in the Yukon for 7 years, 3 of which in Watson Lake, and then I was in Whitehorse after that. First 9 years was about 9 years doing general duty. Ended up in GIS, so our General Investigation Section in Whitehorse. During that time, I was also on the emergency response team. After that, came back to Alberta, went to Fed Drugs in Edmonton, got back with ERT here in the division as well, transferred over to the gang unit with Alert at the time, so had an opportunity to work with a bunch of your folks there. It was excellent time, like really, really enjoyable. And then from gang unit went over to ERT full time on the sniper side. Did that for several years, and then moved into that would put me at about 20 at that point, and then ended up going into more of the admin side. And I've been doing it used to be called a subdivision, staff relations representative.
Okay.
And then moved into another kind of admin role. And then in 2020, got voted in as one of the directors for the inaugural board of directors for the National Police Federation. And it's been smooth sailing since.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Yeah.
It's been good, though. It's been good. Yeah.
I don't envy your guys' job.
Kevin?
I mean, that's a big task. And you're for the Prairie region, right? So you cover a whole bunch.
Yeah. And realistically, the way our board is made up is we're national directors. So while we certainly focus a lot on the regional and even the provincial stuff, we're involved with national committees, national meetings, groups, and so on. So it's there's a lot of things going on there.
You can go ahead, Kevin.
Thanks, Nathan. My career hasn't been quite as geography diverse as Jeff's has. I'm born and raised in Alberta, Grande, Prairie, actually, where I started with the Mounties in '97 as a special constable, and looking after the provost section. So I was driving the bus, moving prisoners around to court and jail and all those kind of good stuff. After doing that for a few years, I decided I wanted to join the regular constable route. So I went off to depot and graduated, had a great time, and then promptly moved me to Fort Vermilion, Alberta, where we served there for just over 3 years. Had a great time. I thought I was going to the ends of the world. But in hindsight, it was one of the best experiences ever. Great people and a lot of really awesome work that a junior member just would not have had an opportunity to do. Was able to carry the file coordinator on a couple of murders and that sort of stuff, which is just something that a junior member in, say, Red Deer or Sherwood Park's just not going to get an opportunity to do. So and at the end of the day, it was quite a fortunate turn of events, really. When I was done in Fort Vermilion, we moved down to Sylvan Lake in 2004. and I still live in Sylvan Lake. Took a promotion in Sylvan Lake, and then took another promotion into Red Deer a few years later. And then, like Jeff, back when the MPF stood up in 2000, was fortunate enough to get elected by our peers in the division here, and haven't looked back. It's the MPF is a lot of work. It's it's some really long days and a lot of things on the go and a lot of balls in the air at the same time. But it's great work, and we really enjoy doing it.
Well, and for you guys, when you're elected directors, is that full-time position? And do you vacate like your position with Sylvan or wherever else you are?
Yeah, it's extremely full time.
Yeah.
I would say, time and a half really, for sure. And yeah, so we've vacated other positions. So what happens at the end of a term is really, yet to be determined. Um,
Okay.
we'll see. It'll be up to the members whether we do that. We're able to do this for another term or not. So, but hopefully we will.
How long are your positions there?
They're 4-year terms,
Oh,
or at
wow,
least his
nice.
first ones are 4-year terms. So yeah.
Very presidential. Um, yeah, you know what? So having been a Mountie for a couple of years, one of the things I always liked about it was some of the experiences you get that you don't necessarily get with the municipal services. Like uh, I had ATV training. I was training out in Pincher Creek, and that was probably one of the nicest places I've ever been. Like it was like untouched land down there. And so you're doing some ATV training and got to use that a few times for a few little rescue calls. But I had a friend who went to middle of Manitoba. I don't remember the name of the first post, but he bounced around to a bunch of isolated posts. And he was taking a hovercraft to some of the calls. I was like, I didn't even know we had those here. So it's pretty diverse. I mean, you can do some really cool things, right?
Yeah, and that's pretty much held the allure for a lot of us in joining. Yeah, I look back on some of the things that I did, the places I've been, things I've seen, things I've been able to do, like with Ert riding on the outside of the helicopter, right? Like
Yeah.
doing that, like just lots of really fun, neat things. So I look back, well, quite fondly actually on my service. It's been good. Yeah, it's been good. Same with Kevin, I'm sure.
Yeah, the looking back on it now, Jeff and I are fairly, we're kind of getting closer to the end of our career than we are at the beginning of our career for sure. And I can honestly say, Nathan, I can count on the number of, on 2 or 3 fingers, the number of bad days that I've had as a police officer in the Mounties. I've enjoyed almost every second of it. Got to meet some fantastic people and got to work with some fantastic people, and just some really cool opportunities, on deployments and whatnot. It was it's been a great ride.
Yeah, especially if you're an outdoors person or you like to travel, obviously you're going to get those opportunities. Anyone I know, and this may be more for Jeff, but anyone I know that's traveled or sorry been posted to the territories has said they love it, and I think a lot of people just don't know what's up there. But yeah, I've never heard a bad thing actually about anyone that's been up there.
Yeah, the Yukon was great. I haven't been to Nunavut yet. I was in like part of the area for Watson Lake. We covered a bit of the territories, kind of into tungsten mine area and so on, but northern BC and so on. But you are 20 minutes in any direction from high quality water if you like fishing. I love fishing, and it
Yeah,
was outstanding up there. It was, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and people don't really realize how big the country is until you start, especially on the force plane when you're flying over some of those northern spots. Boy, there is nothing but bush for miles and miles and miles. It's
wow,
outstanding.
yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll kind of jump into a few of the topics we are going to cover today. Uh, First one was just talking about the province's announcements for funding. So, yeah, we can start with either one of you. And just to give a bit of context, it was the province has announced a whole bunch of funding to kind of combat crime. They've announced money for sheriffs, major centers, so Edmonton and Calgary, and then the Grand Prairie transition, which we'll get into later. But yeah, kind of if you kind of walk us through some of the stuff that's been going on around this, and then and the concerns that are out there, obviously, for the rural municipalities.
Yeah, any funding announcement, anytime we get more money for policing, that's a good thing. Um, and we're great to see that. Happy to see that Edmonton and Calgary can get some more police positions there. There's more fully trained police officers are always better than less fully trained police officers. Unfortunately, this last announcement from the government kind of missed out on a good chunk of the province, not just by population, but by geography as well, leaving, well more than half of it really not getting anything out of this announcement. Fantastic. If you're living in Edmonton, Calgary, you can get some more police officers. Great. Uh, you know, and that's good for you. But that doesn't leave anything, for the folks in, the High Prairies and the Trochus and the, Three Hills, areas where the Mounties cover, which is the bulk of the province. So that's a little bit disappointing. It's I get that criminals, should not be really, readily accessible or welcome in Edmonton or Calgary, but they also shouldn't be welcomed in the small communities either, policed by the Mounties. So it's disappointing that there wasn't any announcement for more funding in those areas, but we'll get there, I guess, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, I echo Kevin's sentiment. I truly believe, I think there is a genuine interest, obviously, on the part of the government in trying to address the rise in crime, especially the violent crime, and focusing on Edmonton, Calgary are really good things. But there was a bit of a missed opportunity to address the rest of Alberta, which is, outside of Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, Camrose, whatever, that is basically policed by the amount of police. I mean, it's population of Alberta is what, 4.5 million roughly. So you've got
Yeah.
maybe 2.5 million in the cities. And then all of a sudden you've got the remainder that are out there. And that's been a consistent complaint, I guess, from the communities is, what are you going to do about these, roving criminals? What are you going to do about this kind of stuff? And having policed in small town, and Kevin will know it for sure, you have a small group, and it's true, although that group is a bit larger, you have a small group that is generally responsible for the crime. So the police in all jurisdictions focus and arrest and charge these people. But there's the after effect of that. So that's your prosecutors and the judges and the jails and all of these other kind of ancillary parts or items that need to be addressed in order to really truly have an impact on crime. And funny enough, I was at the White Court Regimental Ball over the weekend, and I happened to be speaking with Mark Long, the MLA from there, and I had said, you guys, he's a UCP MLA, and he is generally supportive, obviously, of the communities and policing. And I had said, I mean, if you guys are in a position, because they control policing within the province, so that's provincial police and a lot of the enforcement, but the courts, prosecutors, all of that justice system stuff, if they can get that in order or addressed as best as they can then turn to the parts where the federal government has, jurisdiction, like a lot of the bail reform stuff and a lot of the laws and so on. So get your house in order, figure that part out, and then you can start to say, look, we've done everything we can. Let's try and focus on making everything better. So
Yeah, I think a lot of there's so many issues right now, right from justice. We need justice reform, bail reform. I think a lot of people kind of dump most of it onto police to solve, which is definitely not the solution. Yeah, and talking about some of the communities that need help, even the ones that are close to the city, we'll interact with, being here in Edmonton, we interact with Beaumont and Leduc or anyone else around. There's some serious bad guys in these communities, and they have one-person drug teams. You can't do anything with that. You need more resources. So if I have a gripe, it's going to be to get Beaumont some more resources. So, yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I was going to say that, yeah, you're right. That is a focus, and it's been good because the way that the province is kind of divvied up right now, there's crew teams, so crime reduction units, and
Yeah.
I know that EPS deals and because nobody exists in a silo these days, and everybody is working hand in hand, right? I mean, that's
Yep.
kind of where alert came from, and I know just having dealt with EPS on a lot of stuff, like there is great cooperation and great uh, focus on these general bad guys. But you're right. When it comes down to it, I mean, it's always a resourcing thing. And yeah, if you're a one man, two man GI or drug unit, there's pretty limited stuff you can do because, as we've all seen with the way that the courts are going these days, disclosure and evidence is just building and building, and the requirements are building. So, yeah, there's a real need for that kind of increased resourcing.
Yeah, the defense lawyers are good. They've really bogged down the system with the amount of paper and things you got to do. Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge. Um, so, do you think have you ever heard? Is there any talk about the sheriffs becoming like a provincial police? Has that ever come up?
Well, nobody. Well, not that's come out in those plain words
Mm,
at all. I mean, there's clearly been a move by the government to expand the sheriffs number wise and expand some of their mandates. And that's no disrespect to the sheriffs at all. I think they do a very good job at what were hired to do for the most part. It is a little bit concerning as they expand that mandate more and more and more. Some of the original things that they were first off hired to do, it seems to be kind of falling off the table.
yeah,
Like prisoner escorts, for example, is to the point now where most of our detachments, if they have a prisoner that needs to be moved, um, they don't even bother calling. They just do it themselves because they've already gotten the answer many times previous that yeah, sorry, we can't do that until Monday, and it's now Friday night, sort of thing. So
yeah. Well,
it's
and then you run into charter breaches or some different types of arguments that you might get out of that creates a huge issue.
Yeah, for sure. And the there is, I mean, right now, as you saw, or I'm not sure if you saw, but like within the last budget, there was no mention of a provincial police force. They've kind of backed away from that because I think
Yeah,
overwhelmingly the population is not focused on that. And I think the salient point to all of that is you can have 100,000 police officers on the street, and it's really not going to make a big difference unless you support all of the other side of the justice system. Because I mean, to your point about police getting blamed, it's true because police are the face of it. You're out
yeah,
there, you're in the public all the time, but the police are, and we hear it all the time from the members, and you guys, I'm sure you do too. You arrest the same people over and over again. They end up going to jail and they end up getting booted out. Part of that, of course, was some of the bail reform initiatives from, I can't remember what year, but a couple of years ago, Bill
yeah,
C-75, I
yeah.
think it was. And now with C-48, hopefully things start to get addressed. But again, even the bail side of it is not the major issue. I mean, we if we really want to address crime, we should not. I would say not focus on the people who are necessarily enforcing the laws, but what comes after that. And that's, EPS, RCMP, CPS, whatever. It doesn't matter at this point.
It comes down to the policymakers. I only go or do the things I'm allowed to do, and I respond to the calls where the calls are. Like it doesn't get much simpler than that. It's the policymakers that have to decide, where resources might be going, who's getting funding, and what laws we enforce, and then how we follow up on those, I guess, enforcement efforts.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And that's kind of that's the I won't say the sad part, but the frustrating part. We're only doing so much, and that's why it's always, because I'm sure you hear it as well. That's why it's always funny when uh, police get blamed for targeting groups or individuals or
Yep.
whatever. It's like everything that the police tend to focus on, it's behavior based. It's not, nobody cares what somebody looks like or what group you belong to or whatever. It's all behavior based. And unfortunately, kind of the way things have gone in recent years is there's been a shift in how people after the fact view all of that. So it's kind of, we're probably off topic here on some of this stuff.
No, I think but it's still a good point though. Like when it comes to funding, like what are we funding? The types of units, and then when we say, well, I don't have anybody in patrol to go to half these calls, because we're creating, I don't know another term for it, but it gets used around here a lot, boutique units, and it's like, well, is that the appropriate response? That comes from policymakers, the political side of things that are pushing a certain. They want the optics out there that, this one issue is being taken care of. One of the things, and I've said this many times on the podcast, like right from informants' mouths, we've been told, like, you used to spend 90% of your, dollars fighting us and going after like the real bad guys. Now you spend 50% on social justice issues. Maybe some of those are legitimate issues that we need to focus on or make changes. I don't think that like the amount of budget that we spend, we're seeing the effects of it right now, where we have these issues about, who's getting what funding, what services handling, what thing. It just seems like a bit of a disaster right now, I guess. A lot of fragmentation. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Kevin, there.
Well, I was just going to say, like those, that's a great term for, boutique units. Those are fine and dandy. If the real leather on the streets, leather on the ground, patrol or the watches in our case, are also up to stuff. You can't do one at the expense of the other, and
Yeah.
sometimes that seems to be happening lately.
Well, I was going to say to that point, when you look at professional athlete, you take like a professional hockey player. What is it that makes them great? Okay, so you have obviously the discipline and they have that innate skill or whatever. But when you see them do the fundamentals, they have the fundamentals down, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing something that is second nature. Like they go into autopilot when they're passing the puck or skating or whatever, that kind of stuff. So I kind of liken it to general duty, patrol, whatever is your bread and butter. Answering calls from the public is your bread and butter. So if you start to deviate or distract from that sole focus, I think it suddenly impacts the way the whole organization kind of responds.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a good analogy, but that's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And so we already mentioned this a little earlier, but like the Grand Prairie transition. So we'll kind of move on to this here. This is something I kind of find fascinating because I think everybody compares it to the Surrey example. So can you tell us just about Grand Prairie and the transition there, how it's going? Any updates around that process? Maybe why it's going so smoothly.
I don't know if I would necessarily say that. I mean, we saw that Dwayne LaCusta got hired on as the chief of police. I mean, he is going to be. He's got his work cut out for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think, end of next year they're supposed to have like 41. Like, there's varying kind of numbers, but their transition plan is 41-ish by next year, and I think the year after that they're almost double that. Year after that, I think, so 24, 25, 20, 26, 27 is when they're supposed to be fully stood up. So that means bringing on 100 members. I'm not sure how that's going to look because we haven't really seen much by way of recruiting strategy or like.
Okay.
I'll tell you that our members that are there, nobody is interested in flipping over to a Grand Prairie Police Service.
Okay. Yeah.
That's we haven't seen it. There might be the odd one that wants to stay in the area, but we've got a rural presence, so they'll likely stay on that front. But that's more because ex-wife or kids or whatever kind of there. I don't know if Surrey and GP are good comparators, but the difference, of course, with Surrey is you're in the Lower Mainland and you're surrounded by all of these other kind of police forces. So there can be a lot of that jumping from one to the other or moving back and forth and so on. That's not the case within Grande Prairie. So either you're going to have raw recruits coming into Grande Prairie, which in and of itself could be problematic because, I mean, as you know, policing is born out of experience. That's how you kind of keep things going. And then there might be some experienced police officers that go over, but we haven't seen that much of an interest. Whatever. I mean, Grande Prairie made that decision. I think it's going to be problematic. And I think in the end, the force was doing, like the RCMP was doing a good job there, but it seems to me to have been more politically motivated. I presented to city council at that time. I went there and I asked, various questions, and I don't think there was a good understanding necessarily on their part on the ramifications of that decision. And that's everything from major crimes investigation to drug investigation to air services to emergency response team, bomb unit, dog, etc. All of these things are very, very expensive. And it's not a question, you can't just stand up a tactical team or an emergency response team. You need people who have experience in it. Granted, it all started somewhere, but that's not the reality we're living in these days. There's a huge liability here, and I'm not confident that it's going to be satisfied with the way things are going. But I mean, my crystal ball stopped working a long time ago.
And just before you jump in there, Kev, just along the lines of what you're saying, Jeff, about people jumping over. So when I had Brian, for listeners, the president of the NPF, on the program before, he, and I won't be able to do these numbers justice, but he said, I think they expected in Surrey something like 40 or 50% of people, just to throw a number out there, it was a big number, to jump and stay in Surrey.
Yeah.
And then it ended up being something like 7%. So it was way lower.
I think it might have actually been lower than that. Like they expected, and again, I can't remember what the number was a percent, but it was a huge percentage that they expected to jump over. And at the end of the day, members jumping over from the RCMP total was very small, less than 7%. And I want to say maybe around that 5% number. And the number of members that actually jumped from Surrey was even lower, like
okay.
really low. And you can only kind of assume that there would be those sort of low percentages in Grande Prairie as well. I mean, like Jeff said, there may be a very small handful of members that want to jump over to a brand new unproven police service for whatever the reason is. They have, wife's got a good job at the college or whatever, or they're looking at they're wanting to go to pension and double dip, and no offense meant to any of those guys. I probably know most of them. Have at her, enjoy, and whatnot. But as far as vast numbers jumping over, I just don't think you'll see it. And I think recruiting is going to be tough regardless for them. I mean, we saw that, again, not to make comparisons to Surrey, but they expected to have several hundred or a few hundred, I should say, hired to Surrey a long time ago, and the numbers just aren't there. And we're talking Surrey, large center with a huge population around it to draw from, let alone across the country. Whereas in Grande Prairie, I'm from Grande Prairie, so I understand the area up there very well. Not a huge population to draw from for police officers. I mean, the talent pool for police officers across the country is extremely small to begin with. Jeff will have the numbers at the top of his head, but for a population of the country, I think we have only like 68,000 police officers across the country. There's not a lot of people wanting to do this job. And with the state of recruiting everywhere, not just in the Mounties, but pretty much anywhere in Canada or North America, any of the major police services anyway. If there's a able-bodied person that has the skill set and the desire to become a police officer, they can pretty much look at a map right now and say, "I want to be a police officer at location Z," and then
Exactly.
go apply there. If you're qualified and suitable, you're gonna get hired. Like it's a buyer's market right now, if I can use that term as far as joining.
Yeah, people are paying some big dollars to have people switch services, right?
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
relocation fees and or expenses. Uh, One of the things that I also didn't know if Grand Prairie was doing was, and I think Surrey did this, where if you had X amount of years on, say, as a constable, you could apply directly to be a sergeant, or if you were a sergeant with 10 years, say, you could be a staff sergeant. Is Grand Prairie doing anything like that?
We we
Oh no.
haven't really seen that. I mean, and even with Grand Prairie, because you're looking at roughly, I think total, I think it's 104 or so police officers. So you're going to have a chief and then probably two deputy chiefs. And then you're going to have a couple, there'll be a couple of maybe staff sergeants in charge of whatever units, but there's going to be pretty
Hmm.
limited positions. So I'm not sure that you would necessarily see. I mean, again, it depends on who's bringing people in, but I don't know if that's been actually covered, and I don't think that there's a hard and fast plan there, especially when you're comparing to Surrey. So Surrey, I think it's like 152, or pardon me, 852 police officers within Surrey detachment. GP, you're looking at 104. And I'll tell you right now, I mean, they have sergeants in charge of the watches there. They'll have a corporal or two underneath. They'll have a traffic unit. They'll have there's a training sergeant, an inspector, superintendent. It's kind of that command, and then staff
Yeah.
sergeant or two in charge of those areas. So your positions are pretty limited. So if they do end up getting a lot of people putting in for those ones, they could likely be picky. But again, I haven't seen whether or not anybody's actually put in for it. I'm sure there'll be some, but we just don't know yet.
Yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts on just, so there's the Grand Prairie's transition? Um, Seen Surrey. I know there's some First Nations that we're talking about looking at their own police services. Uh, what do you think the main motive is for why all this people are talking about this now? Is this just like a big, like, beat it, Ottawa, we don't want you in here? Is that like the main driver, or is there anything else kind of going on?
Hmm. Complicated. I think
Yeah.
I think really there is such a distaste for Ottawa and the Liberal government, particularly the current Prime Minister, that I think that kind of taints a lot of the view of stuff, because we hear it all the time that, oh, the RCMP, you answer to Justin Trudeau, and all this other stuff, and there's such a disconnect on that statement.
Yeah.
Nobody like nobody does anything like that. The prevent like policing is subordinate to the law, right? I mean, the law is the guiding principle for all of it, irrespective of who may or may not be prime minister at the time. Um, I think that the defund the police movement and all of the negative press and the really
Mhm.
anti-police sentiment that we've been seeing in the last couple of years has had an effect on that. And I think that people people believe that somehow there's an element of control that's
Yeah.
missing, and I don't know where that comes from, because I can think of nothing worse than politicians controlling the actions of the police, right? Like
Yeah.
it flies in the face of a liberal democracy. Liberal democracy is law.
I would think along the same lines, as all I was going to kind of put in there is like, I think it comes down to control, control the resources, control the budgets, but also now the local politicians get to say, like, we're directing you, or they maybe have that idea that, like, we're directing you, we're going to have that much more control. But then you start getting police commissions involved, and chiefs and stuff. Like, there's different buffers in there. So yeah, maybe, I don't know if they're like told, like, a
A
bad
bill of goods.
idea. Yeah, but yeah, I get what you're saying there with the control.
Last year at this time anyway, there was a lot of conversation um, about what Jeff was alluding to, too much control from Ottawa, answer to the feds and all that kind of stuff. And under the the provincial police services agreement, that's the contract between the provincial government and the federal government. It's completely not true. Article 6 of that agreement, that contract, clearly says that the provincial minister sets the priorities and objectives and the goals for the provincial police service, and currently the RCMP. So, but the a lot of people miss that because it's all the scuttlebutt on the social media or whatever reports
Yeah,
that the Mounties answer to the feds, and they just take it as gospel. Where in fact it couldn't be further from the truth, and you don't take my word for it. Just Google Alberta Police Services Agreement, and you can read it for yourself. It's Article 6, and it's not even a long document. It's only about 80 some pages, and it's not complicated phrasing at all.
that's an issue everywhere right now in almost any industry. Nobody goes past like the clickbait and the headlines. And it's like read with a little bit of depth or research something before you scream and shout, right?
That's the unfortunate part because the actual data or truth of the matter is out there and available, but um, there's a disservice, I think, being done by various special interest groups who clearly have an agenda that want to detract from the role of police or the way police are conducting themselves. Oversight's a good thing. Everybody's on board with it. I mean, there is no more heavily regulated industry, honestly, in Canada than policing. Consider
Yeah.
your public complaints and your LERB for you guys, and then CRCC and ACERT and everything, and then the internal stuff and a rank structure, and it is heavily regulated. So, I mean, if they wanna try and address, I don't know what control they're missing. Like I'm
Yeah.
at a loss when I try and figure out why. I think it's just rhetoric, and I think it's nothing. It's somebody says it, and there isn't much thought beyond it. So
Yeah. And I think one of the best things that I found through even just doing this podcast, and I've had some of the local politicians on, chiefs of police, uh, is telling them like, come on a ride along and showing them. And we've had them out, and yeah, I think it's like one of the biggest eye-opening experiences. And having them out with like patrol or get them out with like a crew team, like the people that are in the shit, like doing, real grind out there. Because that's where they need to see like this is how the nice society is made. So they lose that
well,
perspective.
yeah, and you're right, and I think and it's anecdotal, but currently within the RCMP there is a national oversight body, and it's made up of various people, high flyers. And the current chair of that group is, I think his name is Kent Roach. Kent Roach, was or is a lawyer. He was a professor at Osgood Law School, I believe. Anyway,
Okay.
he was like out of Toronto, and he was often critical of a lot of the stuff that the mounted police or like the Mounties were doing in the various areas. But he was invited, and good on him, he accepted tours of the various areas. So I think he was in uh, Surrey, like Lower Mainland at some point. Then he was in, I can't remember if it was northern Saskatchewan and northern Manitoba, and gave him an opportunity to see the myriad of responsibilities that police and us in particular were doing, and the nature of the calls and the lack of resources and the lack of logistical support, et cetera, especially when you're going into a lot of these northern communities. And he had the humility, I guess, to say, you know what, this was eye opening. This was, and so he's kind of
Hmm.
changed his take on it. So you're right. You need to be able to get people out and see what it is that the police actually do, and maybe they'll understand that we're not targeting groups. We're not just picking on people. It's again, behavior based. We're responding to the calls. The public is the one that's calling us because, believe it or not, police have more than enough to do without having to go and pick on people, right? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, and did you have anything, Kevin?
I was just chuckling at what Jeff said. Yeah, I mean, they don't have extra time to go pick on people. Like,
Yeah.
we're very got our hands full.
Maybe we'll kind of just coming up to the end here and wrap up with, you got any new news, any projects, any initiatives that are on the go from the NPF side that you could kind of tell people about? I know, Kevin, just before we fired up, we were talking about the pistol transition, because I still see guys walking around with those Smith & Wessons. And I'm like, that's a brick on your hip. But yeah, anything kind of coming down the pipe?
Well, yeah. So when I first started, I had a revolver. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's where it was. So I had the revolver, and I think the transition occurred in 96, and I was like, oh, great, we have a semi-auto. It turned out to be a boat anchor, but it served its purpose, right? But
Yeah.
we're 20 years on easily with this thing. With the emergency response team, we carried the SIG, which was a nicer, like, we all like we're all cops. We all like, the new gun and the new shiny thing, but there's a real need for it now. And we've been, like Kevin and myself, we've been really pushing hard to get a new pistol, because as with anything, breaks down over time. Pieces start to break. Like, any amount of maintenance is not going to save just wear and tear from an old object. So right now, I think like the RCMP has done its stuff with respect to the pistol. So the pistol is done. It's been moved over to PSPC, so basically Procurement Canada. So that's the branch within the federal government that is responsible for the new contract and get it going. Anybody who pays attention to the news can see that at times things may or may not be slowed down with that. We suspect that at least by the next fall, they should be rolling it out. Like, it doesn't seem that complicated to any of us. Like, it's pretty simple. It's going to be polymer, with any luck, kind of a modular design, striker fired, lighter with a red dot, light, extra magazines, all this stuff. The platform, basically the same. So you're not looking at too much by way of training. It should be an easy thing to start and get going. But as with anything, bureaucracy may, it'll have its impact, because obviously there are rules to follow. But I am cautiously optimistic by next year, perhaps this time next year, we will see a new pistol. But like I said before, my crystal ball stopped working a long time ago. So I don't know. Hey, Kevin?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no. Yeah, Jeff's right. I mean, it has been, at times it's felt like pushing a rope up a hill. It's just gone really slow. The RCMP has actually been pretty, from Jeff's and my comfort, Jeff and I share chair. The RCMP has actually been fairly easy to work with, as far as getting them on board. Agreeing that there is a need for a pistol and whatnot. It's procurement that's really been slowing the things down here. The only thing I'm going to add to what Jeff said is, like, when we started getting these pistols, I'm not quite as old as Jeff, so I started with a pistol, but just barely, just by a few months. They At that point, it was already old technology, and in some police forces in the States, NYPD rings a bell. We're actually getting rid of those ones, the 5946, but we were getting on. At the time, was it an improvement from the revolvers? Yeah, sure it was. But just like anything else, time moves on, and there's new, much better stuff now. And what we have now, while they were good when we first got them, I'm going to say good, not great. It's time to move on and get something better. What that is, or whose logos on the frame, who knows yet? But the specs are readily available on the government buy and sell website. At least they were. And it'll be a whiz bang shiny, with all the bells and whistles, with all the creature comforts of the the newest, shiniest model out there. So that'll be good. So, and for any of the Mounties that are listening, all I can say is, good things come to those that wait, as hokey as that sounds. But it will be worth the wait. I'm quite confident. But on the other hand, if you need a boat anchor, you'll probably actually have to go buy a boat anchor. Your pistol, you're gonna have to turn back in. The other thing Jeff and I are working on is the body worn cameras, which
Yes.
is going again not as quick as we would like to. And there was some problems with the first vendor that they piloted, but it's moving along. So again, in the next, well, I don't know, Jeff, I don't know how many months I would guess, but sooner rather than later, because there does seem to be a push from the federal government to get those done. I would suspect we will see those out in the field, kind of on a right.
I think we're in the same boat as you. Like, we're testing a couple vendors here in Edmonton. So
Yeah, and that's the I think like it had originally. It looks like it like the second one that has been moved on. I think it was Axon was identified. We'll see how that ends up playing out. But this is where a lot of the public doesn't seem to understand just how big of a project this is when you start to include disclosure rules and
yeah,
privacy laws and storage capacity and all of this vetting stuff and the ability of the Crown to actually use it. So it's not just a simple matter of grabbing a camera, slapping it on, and then off you go to work. You have to have all of these other things. You have to have policies in place. You have to have, because there will be, I mean, these things are going to be out there, and especially when you're looking at outfitting your police forces with it. There is going to be a lot of these things out there, and it's going to be, FOIP stuff or ATIP for us.
yep.
There's going to be lots of demand for it. I mean, it's potentially going to, what are the rules when it comes to releasing to the media? How do you gauge all this stuff? What can the Crown use? Are they going to? So there is a massive, massive um, behind the scenes kind of development for this project. Now it's gone relatively quick. Kevin and I have reviewed and gone, like the force kind of sends over the policy just for our thoughts and so on, and they've been pretty good about incorporating some of our concerns. And right now, it's a matter of getting it and making sure that it can operate, from the wet climate of Vancouver Island to the
Yeah.
north of Nunavut, right? I mean, because you're looking at one big purchase, so it'll be interesting.
The cold is, I don't think people realize, like, there's almost no way to get around it. Like, when
Yep.
the cold sets in, like, it affects everything, all your systems. So
Yeah, well, and consider when we started with the VIX cameras. I mean, it was basically a VCR in the trunk. I remember when it started
yeah,
out, right? And they more often than not crapped out, and that's
yep.
because freezing cold. They stay in there, and then of course there's the inevitable questions of, well, how come your VIX wasn't working? Why wasn't this? And then it's implied that it was turned off or whatever. And hey, man,
Yeah.
VCR in the trunk just ain't going to work that good. So we got to work these things out.
I remember changing the CD in
Yeah.
there every shift. You have to put the CD in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Nothing likes the cold, including me. And yeah, I mean, there'll be a whole pile of things, like, the battery life and will it work a full shift in the cold and all that kind of stuff. It'll probably do better when it's tucked underneath your coat, but then it kind of defeats the purpose. So of being visible. So but anyway, it'll be another step to move into the 21st century of policing whenever we get those.
Yeah. And I think it'll be good. I actually am looking forward to a lot of the video being out there and being available to the public so the public can
Yeah.
see and have a better perspective on what it is that the police deal with and honestly the abuse that the police end up taking, because I think middle class Canada doesn't really understand what or how things are when they're on the street. I mean, I usually use my mother as a middle class barometer of what she
Yeah.
knows or understands, and because she'll watch the news and whatever, and unless she's actually speaking to myself or my brother, because my brother's a member as well, unless she's speaking to us, she won't necessarily have that perspective that says, "Well, hold on a second here. It's not actually playing out as you see in the media, there's another
Yeah.
side to it. And I think that the body worn camera will provide that other aspect to it. So I think it'll be beneficial.
And even if not the audio, there's the video, or sorry, if not the video, there's the audio. But I'm all for it. I say let her rip, because I think people are going to be surprised at just who lives next door to them, and then when they see it in their communities, and it's not always the low socioeconomic, down on their luck, woe is me, like any of that stuff. It's like middle class people. They're going to see, who's in their neighborhood and what police have to deal with. Even some of the nicer neighborhoods. And we're like, wow, that's how people act.
Oh, I can't wait for people to see the inside of some of these houses and stuff and see, wow, this is how some people live. Like it's really eye opening, and it's something that I think the police in Canada have shielded the majority of Canadians from for a very, very long time. There's a reason that we're there. There's a reason it's called the thin blue line, right? Protecting society from chaos. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think just from talking to our members out in the field, they're all super eager to get body worn cameras as well. If for nothing else, to give a full and transparent, view of what actually took place. Just like the not unlike any of the members from municipal police services across the province. Our guys get public complaints that are for lack of better words, completely fictitious.
Yeah.
And they often say, well, geez, had I had a camera, we could just go to the tape and you could see exactly what happened. So I think when that day comes, it will be spectacular, I think. And hopefully it will put an end to some of those ridiculous complaints that we get.
Yeah. You know what? I think maybe we'll kind of wrap up here with I'll say, like, there's nobody that's looking to get rid of bad police more than the good police. And when we have that video and stuff, and with the way things are right now, I think police are the first and foremost to hold themselves accountable. And it's on the public side. And one of the things I always put out in social media stuff is asking the community, what are you doing to produce better people? Where were you raising these people, educating, health systems, whatever else came across? Like, by the time the police are dealing with somebody, generally, many, many systems have failed them by the time they get to us. So what are you doing to make better people? So, and if there's anything else you guys want to kind of wrap up with, but kind of end it there, I think we got through quite a bit, more than I thought we were going to get to. It's good.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate you having us on. And you know what? I mean, if you're so inclined or something comes up, you can reach out to either of us, and we'd gladly do it again.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's too bad you didn't have a studio, because I love nothing better than getting out of the house to do that, because I got the office here.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll see about that. That's big money though, and I'm not Joe Rogan, so I don't get to create a spaceship or whatever he's got. So
too bad.
Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate having you guys on, and just hang on the line for a second here. I'll say bye offline, but yeah, really, really glad we could get you in.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Nathan. It's great.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.